menomang
link itu.
Okay, so good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to this event, which is called How Entrepreneurs Can Make the World More Sustainable. And it's my pleasure to just give a short introduction to the work that we're doing here at Esade in terms of social impact. And then I'll hand over to my colleague, Linda, who will explain the work that we've been doing on the Zero Waste Accelerator. And then to my colleague, Alfred Vernis, Professor Alfred, who will be introducing as well our guest, Rémi Parmentier. So just a quick introduction. My name is Lisa Hienberger. I'm an associate professor here at Esade, and I'm also director of our Center for Social Impact that we set up actually now a year ago. So what is the Esade Center for Social Impact? It's basically a research center, and we work on three main topics. So that's impact investing, impact entrepreneurship, and impact measurement and management. And we also look at gender as a transversal topic. And about sort of the work that we do, we try to make sure that we're doing research that is rigorous, so that has rigor. We're using academic research. We also want to make sure that it's relevant. So we are connecting with different organizations in the sector, trying to understand what are the things that they're struggling with and how can we solve some of those problems. And we also want to have reach. So we want to make sure that the research that we do is actually reaching the organizations that need it. And what is social impact? I see some of my students here in my class, so I'm not going to quiz you on that. But definitely, if you think about social impact, it's about some sort of a change. Okay, so you have a problem that you're trying to solve. And the impact is really about understanding if you, through your activities as an organization, are in some ways solving that problem for a specific beneficiary group, but it could also be, of course, for the planet. Because we're working both on social topics, but also on environmental issues. We have been publishing lots of different reports, in the past year on these sort of three topics of impact entrepreneurship, impact investing, and impact measurement. So, for example, in terms of impact investing, we have done a mapping study of impact investing in Spain, and that has actually contributed to as well shaping the sector and providing key data that is also important for policymakers, and it's also important for impact investing funds when they're trying to raise money and attract attention to the topic, to actually have sort of concrete data and numbers that show what the sector looks like. So that is just part of what we're doing. We've also been working, with different types of organizations on this. So our main stakeholders, it's really on both on the side of the ones that are producing the impact. So those could be social enterprises. It could also be nonprofit organizations, so both in the nonprofit and the for-profit space, but also the ones that are funding those organizations. So that could be impact investors, it could be foundations, but of course as well, it could be government that comes in to fund. And of course, we are also working with corporations and also the entire sort of social sector and also the support organizations around that. So organizations that, for example, are developing capacities on how to measure impact and other academics as well. So this is just sort of a snapshot of some of our partners that we have been working with, both in terms of sort of here locally in Spain, but also at European level and globally. So some are funding partners that are helping us conduct our research, but others are more network partners. For example, the European Venture Philanthropy Association, the GSG, which is the Global Steering Group on Impact Investing, Ashoka, which is a network of social entrepreneurs, etc. So we're working with all of these organizations, and we have been actually spun out from another institute called the Entrepreneurship Institute. And this event, and also the Zero Waste Accelerator, is a joint effort between our two research institutes. So the Entrepreneurship Institute and the Esade Center for Social Impact. And this is just some numbers of like what we have been accomplishing in the recent years. So this is since 2019 in terms of publications, academic publications, but also, for example, teaching cases that we're using in the classroom. And I was quite impressed myself by the media impact that we've had, in recent years. So actually reaching 142 million people who have been, seeing the different articles that we have been publishing. And of course, our students, so many students are learning about these topics. And this is, of course, something that we are also very proud of as a business school. So now I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Linda Castellazzi, who's the manager of the Zero Waste project.
Thank you very much. So my name is Linda Castellazzi, and I'm the manager of the Zero Waste project here at Esade. During the past year and a half, Esade worked as part of the Sigra B30 project. So the idea was we wanted to push sustainability in the P30 area, which is the area surrounding Barcelona. And we did it together with partners that are the Hub B30, local municipalities that are Cerdanyola del Valles, Muelle del Valles, la Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, and the research centers PRUAB and EURECAT. And in particular, what did Esade? Focus on what it does very well, helping entrepreneurs in the social, in the sustainability area. And we did it in three areas. So we started with the Zero Waste Hackathon. So it happened in March, and we ideated solutions to reduce waste or transform it into new raw material. Then in May, we launched the Zero Waste Accelerator. So we helped 25 startups by reinforcing and working on their business plan. And in June, together with the other accelerators here at Esade that are EdTech and eWorks, we launched Zero Waste Accelerator to accelerate 10 startups and help them to make it happen. And we did it, of course, together with Esade Entrepreneurship Institute that since 2015 is accelerating Esade students and startups outside. But now, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody that has been part of the Zero Waste project here at Esade, and we had great names such as Javier Goyeneche from EcoAlf, Maria Cano from Canusa, and we have Josh Gilbert from SAST Global. And we have been very lucky because Esade helped us to put together all those big entrepreneurs that came to our sessions and gave out a lot. Also, Esade provided us with the best mentors and lecturers and that inspired our participants. And now it is an honor to close tonight with Remy Parmentier, who is the founding director of the Varda Group and the co-founder of Greenpeace International. And he's here to talk about his experience as a social entrepreneur and founder. So thank you. Let's welcome Remy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Esade for the invitation. It's very exciting to see the young generation that is taking the helm of the corporate world, being increasingly interested in making sure that they do the right things and not the wrong things. So if I've understood correctly, many of you are in the process of starting your startups, or you have started your startups. So my story as an old man is a bit different. My startups, as was mentioned, was belonging to Greenpeace International when it was not an organization. I like to always remind that in my days, Greenpeace was a tribe and not an organization. And it has, there are pros and cons, advantages and inconveniences in being a tribe. You have nothing to lose, so you can be more daring and you can break new grounds. That's the positive side. Maybe a less positive side is that sometimes tribal wars can be a bit bloody. And of course, we had no manuals when we started the tribe. And of course, now it became a large organization. I grew up with Greenpeace, and to some extent, Greenpeace grew up with me. And for the last, that's my second startup, if I may say, in the last 20 years. It's going to be 20 years. Just at the beginning of next year, I've been running the Varda group after 25 years as an activist at Greenpeace. It started to be a bit, time to share the baggage, the experience with other issues and organizations, and that's basically what I'm doing now with the Varda group, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I'll give you an example. I have a young colleague here, Paola Castillo, who accompanies me. We're working at the moment on a project on the blue economy for the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean. That's an example of the sort of things we do. So it's been a long road from the Greenpeace tribe to the Varda group, and it's quite satisfying intellectually, of course, but also ethically, I think, to be able to share values and to bring directions to organizations that sometimes is seeking for directions. So you're going to tell me, I hear you, you're going to say, well, this guy is telling us that he's been trying to protect the environment, to save biodiversity, to fight pollution during his entire adult life. And this French guy is just a loser, because look at the trends. Just a few days ago, WWF reminded us that wildlife populations has plummeted by 69%, basically during the time that I was trying to achieve the opposite. And in 2003, just when I was starting the Varda group, the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which, as many of you know, is a combination, is an hybrid organization made up of both governments and government agencies and NGOs. They gave me this shirt 20 years ago saying, count down out the loss of biodiversity, count down 2010. And we're in 2022. And now they're talking of the post 2030 program to stop the loss of biodiversity. So I must be a loser. You're wondering, and I will tell you, I don't think so, really, because the truth is that if it's a collective we, environmentalists, activists, and so forth, had not been around in the last, in my case, it's 45 years? Soon, in 2 years' time, it's going to be 50 years. How embarrassing. If we had not been around with our campaigns and our strategies to slow down the loss of biodiversity, slow down the rise of pollution and so on, climate change and so on, the situation would be even worse. And this is a message of hope. Action can work. And it's a message of fear also, because basically it means that to protect the world, we rely on voluntary action of ordinary people such as you and me. But there are things that work, and I'll give you an example. I did a series of interviews in the last couple of hours at the request of Esade for social media and mainstream media. And a couple of times I was asked, so what are you, what did you achieve? So I'll give you an example. This is me on the black and white photo, believe it or not. This is me during one of the first legendary voyages of the Rainbow Warrior, the first vessel of Greenpeace. And at the time, it was the whale campaign. We used to say harpoons should belong to museums. And I was really excited. About 35 years later, I think the photo in color was taken about exactly 10 years ago, 11 or 10 years ago. I found the very same harpoon that we had intercepted in the high seas. I think in the photo, the black and white photo is from 1980. When we were saying harpoons should belong to museums, I found the very same harpoon. It had the number and the name of the vessel in a museum. So, it's sometimes you can achieve your vision. And protecting whales has been the achievement of a vision that we had, that if we were not going to protect the largest animals on Earth, how could we hope to protect the rest? And the truth is that the protection of whales, which continues to be a fight, because not so much, harpoons are gone, they're in the museums, but there are contemporary threats to whales. One of them is climate change, in particular in the polar regions, but also, whales get entangled in fishing nets. Underwater noise pollution affects them. Merchant vessels that are going always faster because of international trade competition hit the whales and kill them, and so on. Protecting whales is an ongoing battle that continues to unite generations after generations. You have been, or you are you belong to the Zero Waste Accelerator. So I was interested. That's one of the reasons why I said, yes, Esade, I'm going to come, because I know quite a bit about waste and the prevention of waste. And I will give you an anecdote and an explanation of why it is that maybe you have to deal, you're scratching your heads, and the whole world is scratching its heads on how to prevent the proliferation of plastic wastes in the ocean and in the environment? Well, when we started our waste campaign in the mid-1970s, our vision was that we should focus on invisible wastes, because we thought that naturally society would deal with visible waste. So we said, well, let's focus on toxic chemical waste and radioactive wastes, and let's give them visibility. And that's what we did with our campaign to stop radioactive waste dumping at sea, which was achieved. I mean, it's a universal agreement that is applied all over the world, even in Russia. And so when Greta says it's all blah, 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 I say, hey, excuse me, Greta, things could be worse if we had not been there, right? But of course, and so we gave visibility to these invisible wastes and achieved that the dumping into the sea, which was a routine operation at the time, would stop, would be banned worldwide. But two things did not happen. First, we obviously were wrong when we thought that naturally society would deal with visible wastes because they could see it with their eyes. Obviously, this did not take place, and this is the crisis that we're and you are dealing with now. The other thought was that if we achieve a prohibition of waste dumping in the high seas, naturally people will say, well, if it's bad in the high seas, it must be bad in rivers, it must be bad in estuaries, it must be bad in coastal waters. And our vision was that it would naturally, this ban on dumping waste in the high seas would be naturally expanded to coastal waters, rivers, estuaries, and so forth. And this did not happen. So we had a vision, we achieved the vision, but not quite as much as we wanted. And very recently, the United Nations Environment Programme announced that with business as usual, we're set to triple by 2060 the production of plastic waste. And it is also a climate issue because it is estimated that 3.4% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from plastic production, because obviously it comes from fossil fuel, right? And this is having an impact, a visual impact, an environmental impact on humans and on other beings. That photo of me with the turtle, I mean, that was a month ago. I found a turtle with a fish hook, right, dead. And as you know, sperm whales, dolphins, all sorts of animals, mega fauna, as we call it, are affected by plastic pollution, and we should stop looking the other way. And with this in mind, I had the privilege in 2014 to be invited to visit Pope Francis when he and his team were preparing their famous encyclical, the environmental encyclical Laudato Si, as a friend who has such a good command of the Latin language is reminding me. So I had a gift for Pope Francis. It was this little bottle that reminds us that pretty much whenever you take sand on a beach, there are always some plastic particles. But I failed completely because so I had this, and I had breakfast before going to see the Pope, and I left the bottle on the breakfast table, and I was in a taxi on the way to the Vatican. I said, fuck. The plastic bottle. Anyway, they kept it in the hotel, but I did not go back to see the Pope and say, hey, I forgot. But anyway, it was interesting to see a year later that the chapters in the encyclical about the ocean were pretty good, actually, pretty good. And I thought it was inspiring to see, as somebody who is not exactly a religious person, to see the weight that a religion can bring. So the United Nations Environment Programme finally, in March this year, decided to launch, as I'm sure you know, negotiations for finally a treaty that would seek to address the proliferation of plastic waste. And in this document that was just released, I'm not even sure if it's been released. As you can see, it's an advanced copy, but it's just about to be released. They say that systems change is possible, but this demands vision, targets, monitoring, and reporting. They could have said money as well. So let's talk vision. I had the privilege to present a paper which I wrote with a group of colleagues, including Paola, actually, for the UN Ocean Conference that took place just a few months ago in June, July, end of June, beginning of July in Lisbon. We called it From Blue Food for Thought to Blue Food for Action. It was the resurrection of an earlier paper which I had written, which was called Blue Food for Thought, which I wrote during the pandemic. And that's what's good. The pandemic had one good thing, is that you could stop, think, and write. And the paper had some innovative ideas on ways to protect the ocean, and it had an impact. I mean, people started to comment it. So this year, at the beginning of this year, after a gathering that was organized by Emmanuel Macron in Brest, in Brittany, it was called the One Ocean Summit. We decided to produce From Blue Food for Thought to Blue Food for Action. I don't have copies of it with me, but I'll tell you, there is a thing called Google. And so if you're curious, you type on Google, From Blue Food for Thought to Blue Food for Action, and zip, it comes. It's on the website of the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation, who very kindly hosted this process. And I always say, think out of the box, think out of the box. Don't let the system box you in. So I'm trying to always present some innovative ideas. One is, let's make ocean protection the norm and not the exception. I'm sure you know that there is an effort at the moment to declare 30% of the ocean protected. Well, first, there are issues about what is meant by protection. For example, some so-called protected areas will allow bottom trawling at the bottom of the ocean, which obviously is a destructive practice. But also, my concern is for the other 70%, not just the 30%. And that's what I mean with, let's make ocean protection the norm and not the exception. And how can you do that? Well, you reverse the burden of proof. It's amazing that ocean defenders have to spend years and years and years to seek to convince governments to declare the protection of small portions of the ocean. It should be the reverse. It should be those who want to use the ocean who should prove that what they're proposing to do is safe. And if there are environmental impact, that they are taking mitigation measures to address those. And so by definition, it would lead to the declaration of what I call exploitable marine areas. And by definition, what is not an exploitable marine area is protected. That's the reverse of the burden of proof. So that was one of the, little revolution we started to instigate at the UN Ocean Conference, thinking out of the box. And the other one, it's a big paper. There is much more to it, but let me tell you just one other thing. It's building on my experience with radioactive wastes. What we did with radioactive waste, we shifted the paradigm from dilute and disperse, which was the solution at the time in the 1970s, to the opposite. Isolate radioactive wastes permanently from the biosphere. And now that we know that plastic wastes becomes microplastics and nanoplastics, it's very similar to the situation with radioactive waste. So the proposal is, let's treat plastic wastes just like we treat radioactive wastes, thanks to the paradigm shift that we originated back in the 1970s and the 1980s. So people tell me, yeah, but Rémi, this is not comparable because the arisings of waste, the volumes of plastic waste are so enormous, you cannot compare them with radioactive waste. Well, they were growing at the time when we stopped radioactive waste dumping at sea. That's the whole point. And it's now is the time to turn the tap. And if the policy becomes to isolate microplastic, nanoplastics from the biosphere, you will see that the costs will be so enormous that suddenly, hey, startups, you're going to get a big business because people will, and large corporations and so forth, and governments will seek solutions to not having to cope with that cost. So that's what I mean with think outside the box. And people tell me, well, Rémi, it's amazing. How do you always think outside the box? And I say it's very simple. When I started in the mid-1970s, there was no boxes. So I don't let myself being boxed in. And I would encourage you, young people, it's a key message. Always think outside the box. You are fans of the Sustainable Development Goals. Everybody's fan of the Sustainable Development Goals. So if you look carefully at my pin, I have a pin like Pedro Sanchez and everybody else, but my pin is a bit different. It has the ocean in the center, because I think it's very important to always remember that what differentiates our planet from all the other planets in the solar system is the ocean. And the ocean is what gives us life from beginning to end. So that's why I put the ocean in the center. And that's why I was a bit pissed off, I will say, when I was in New York in September 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were launched. We had been very busy the 2 previous years to make sure that there would be a special goal. It's known as Goal 14, just for the ocean. And the message, we said it's important to have a goal for the ocean because without the ocean, without a living ocean, there is no living planet. But the communication guys, summarized it in life below water. Well, the SDG 14 for the ocean is much more than life below water. It's life full stop, because without a living ocean, there is no life. And SDG fans, I'm also a fan of the SDGs because it has the merit to be something that everybody has signed up for. But remember, it's the lowest common denominator. It's not the panacea. So let's go beyond. Thank you very much, and stay safe and keep the ocean safe. I can drink now?
Yeah, I can sit down.
Oh, I sit down, but I can drink water also?
Yeah.
Can you open it? He's a strong man. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Remy. We're going to have a conversation right now between us at the beginning, and then we will open to the rest of the audience here, also at home. Okay? When I saw the photo of Remy, I am Professor Alfred Bernice. As Lisa was saying, I thought, I have a similar photo, okay? So I thought, it was the 70s. We are not the same generation nearby. Say, at that time, there were no boxes, there were no Faras, there were no fast fashion, and we had friends, girlfriends, mothers, grandmothers that do.
But you had a better hairdresser.
I think it was grandma. Okay, so thank you very much for being here, all of you. We are really happy to having you here. Encore, Remy, merci for being with us. I have prepared just 3 or 4 questions, but then I really encourage all of you to throw questions to him, and also people at home come through the chat and the streaming, also bring questions to Remy. I was talking with him before. I would say you were an activist in the 70s, okay? And now here we are in a business school, people are studying MSCs, MBAs, etc. What do you think? It has a sense to be an activist in 21st century, in 2022? What do you think?
Well, I think that the fact that we're talking together, talking to each other, that you're interested, apparently, to what I have to say, and that I am interested in listening to you, shows that, yes, we've gone a long way. And it shows that there is a new generation, of course, also, who was born from day one with the awareness of that there is an environmental crisis. When I started, in the mid-1970s, I would say ecology, and many people would say eco what? That's not the case for you guys. My own children, my son is 35 years old. He was born in 1987. That's when the Brundtland report that coined the word sustainable development was released. And my daughter, who is 30 years old, was born in 1992, a few months before the Rio Earth Summit. So your generation is the sustainable development generation, and the paradigm. I mean, you've lived through it all the time since you started, and I think that's a natural development, that there is a generation of entrepreneurs who have assimilated from day one that they must look after our common house, which is called the planet what, planet Earth or planet ocean? Both.
Both. Perfect. Yeah, no, I really agree, and I think that I agree with you that the activists of the 21st century have to be in companies, in schools, in works, in different places, and each one has to be an activist, an entrepreneur at the same time.
Yeah, and so when I say think outside the box, in business terms, it means stop business as usual.
Perfect.
And it's your mission, and I applaud.
Okay, so it gives a perfect opportunity to launch you a next question. Then how can companies incorporate more sustainability in their core business? Because I have the sense that we are going very slow.
Yeah, and I will confess, when a few days ago, I was sent by Esade the tiles to tweet, that I'm coming to Esade, and thing with my photo and the title of the talk. I saw the talk is Can entrepreneurs be more sustainable? I thought, whoa, this word "more" is a bit unfortunate. It's like saying, can you be pregnant or half pregnant or more pregnant? And you're pregnant, full stop. Well, you're sustainable, full stop. So I would not have said, can they be more sustainable? Mm-hmm. It's can they be sustainable, full stop. And where is Andrea? She's probably she's the one who sent me the tiles, and I'm sure she's taking notes of this remark, and sustainability. So I was mentioning Gro Harlem Brundtland, 1987. Great vision, but the word. This is one of these words that, depending on what people decide to put in it, it can mean something or the opposite. The same green economy, blue economy also. I mean, sometimes I say, oh, I'm doing a paper on the blue economy, and people say, ooh, green economy, ooh. And it depends what you mean. A word is not enough. And so sustainability, what do we put in it is the key. And I will tell you something that some of you who know me have heard me say it a number of times. So my apologies. But I think that it's time to give priority to natural wealth, that is to say, biodiversity and ecosystem services, and not so much to artificial wealth, that is to say, money and financial services.
Good.
You like that?
I love it. Okay, so in that direction, we have here several entrepreneurs. Some of them have already started their company, but others are thinking about to start, and I'm sure at home also other people is thinking about that. If you have to suggest, and now you have to help them to think out of the box, areas in the economy where they can really start good companies for the planet Earth or planet Ocean, in what areas will you recommend them to start and do things for nature, for service?
Okay. First and foremost, they have to look at, and we all have to look at our carbon footprint. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely essential, whether it is for the ocean or everything else, to make sure that we comply with the goal of the Paris Agreement to stay under 2 degrees Celsius of warming, of global warming, and if possible, to make the utmost to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is absolutely essential, and every business must pay attention to this, and that's on top of everything. All right. So that's my.
That's very important. So I hope that
that's-
everyone at home and here, Esade professors are also listen to that. Okay, when we talk about entrepreneurship, the first thing we have to talk is, okay, think about a business that is helping to maintain below 2 degrees Celsius.
Yes, and as close as possible to 1.5. And so you'll tell me, well, Remy, are you dreaming? Well, this is the goal that has been adopted by the international community in 2015. And there are issues, especially the issue of finance, loss and damages. There is a lot of tension between industrial and developing countries, common but differential treatment, and so forth. We're going to discuss it again in just 2 weeks' time, in Sharm el-Sheikh at COP27. We've wasted a lot of time, first with governments dragging their feet. Then there was the pandemic that they could hide behind. And now there is the war in Ukraine. But now is the time. And you're going to ask me, or why don't you ask me, Remy, you're going to Sharm el-Sheikh in 2 weeks' time. Are you optimistic? Yes or no? And I will. My response will be, that depends on you. Just doesn't depend on me. I mean, I'm going there because I have a job to do, which has to do with the ocean. I deal with the connection of the ocean and climate change, because the ocean, by the way, is the engine room of the global climate system. That the ocean absorbs 25% or more, a bit more than 25% of the CO2 and 90% of the excess heat that we produce. And this has a cost for the ocean. The chemistry of the ocean is changing. That's what we call ocean acidification. The ocean is warming. You are on the Mediterranean coast. You noticed, 6 degrees excess heat when you were swimming last month, right? And the currents are changing. Sea level rise, something very important. I'm quite amazed, actually, that municipal and other authorities seem to be looking the other way. When you tell them, oh, the ocean is raising, coastal cities, they should really pay attention. And if they don't, I tell you, the insurance companies are going to pay attention and wake them up very soon. So all these are issues that we have to deal with all together. And once again, so Sharm el-Sheikh, I will tell you, or should I tell you that? No, I'm not going to tell you. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
All right.
And we invite you again. Okay,
Yes.
let's before I give the floor to the audience, let's throw Remy a last question. And also I invite the people at home to write questions.
Any one of you goes to Sharm el-Sheikh, by the way? No. Okay. Well, we'll see each other online.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to move you in the direction of entrepreneurship, and let me put it very simple. Why don't you share with us a good example of a sustainable enterprise you have found in the last year or the last 2 years in the ocean, in one of the places you have visited, or a friend of you, an ex-Greenpeace, and now, I don't know, why don't you share a sustainable enterprise that you are happy about to share with the audience? Because at the end, here we have entrepreneurs and they want also to listen.
Well, there has been a lot of progress with renewable energy, both technically and also, in the real world. I think this is to be acknowledged. This is to be encouraged, and this is to be increased. So you were saying you have friends, former activists. Well, my very dear friend Steve Sawyer, who passed away in 2019 after a long many years in Greenpeace, became he set up the Global Wind Energy Council and played a critical role in promoting the development of wind energy worldwide, and he's been recognized as such, and his legacy remains. So I think that's a very good example. There are many others. I have a friend. His name is Mark van Petegem, who is a very, very performant naval architect. He was the designer, or is the designer, of most of these, I call them floating Formula Ones, these sailing vessels that, race, around the world, across the Atlantic. I told him, how many times did you win the America's Cup? He said, oh, I don't know. So he's a very good friend, because believe it or not, we were in kindergarten together. He's the only kindergarten friend that I have kept. We were neighbors. We were living in the same street, and kindergarten and a whole primary school. We did it together. Then, we lost track, and but then we regrouped, because he developed the wind engine for merchant vessels, and he's doing some headwaves, amazing. And I invited him to present at COP25, we called it the Blue Cup, which took place in Madrid under the Chilean presidency. I invited him to present his solutions. Technical solutions are very important, like the ones I've mentioned, but also there are issues of values, because unless values change, there will not be the sufficient political will to develop, support these technical solutions. And I have a saying. I always say, tax the bad guys and subsidize the good guys. Remember that. And as young entrepreneurs, startups, remember to tell your national authorities that they must tax the bad guys and subsidize the good guys, which obviously means that you want to be the good guys.
Good. Thank you, Remy. No, good message. Well, we have already several examples. I think now we can open the floor to hear someone. We start here, and we have several questions. Who has the micro? Thank you. Okay, let's make short questions and go to the point, because we don't have too much time, and we would like to have as many questions as possible. Go ahead, please.
Thank you for your inspirational talk. Since many things work based on incentive, And I am convinced that if you are sustainable, you're going to have to be more profitable. Can we take your word about to make visible the advantages, not just the big companies who are doing things on a sustainable basis, but just the majority of the companies which they don't have very clear that this would be good for them, and to have a sort of crusade to expand?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's take another question over there. Yeah, you want to ask a question? Thank you.
Thank you. Remy, my question is, which kind...
If people could introduce themselves,
say your
that
names.
would be nice, because...
Thank you. My name is Luciana. I'm from Cheers Contracts, a platform that does contracts digitized. We save paper. And my question is more related to struggles and resistance when doing business. When you started, which kind of stubbornness, resistance, or struggles did you have from business, from governments, from people? Which of them do you have now, and how you solve them?
Okay, and there is another last question.
Just 3, because otherwise I lost track, right? Because there are very different
there are no questions
questions
from the... Okay.
And then we do another round.
Please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks, Remy. So I'm Sava. I'm a ex-Esade student and a coach. I work with next-gen entrepreneurs and young leaders that are trying to make a change like you. And there's a saying in coaching which goes, the quickest way we give up our own power is by believing we don't have any. So I was wondering, how big a role do you think that powerlessness on the global scale plays in not adopting some of the changes or technologies that are there? And how do you think we can make the shift from agents of change to everyone a change maker?
Thank you. Good question. You want to start with this one?
Well, these are 3 very different questions, but I think there is one theme, which is incentives and resistance to change. I think that the 3 of you are talking a bit about this. So first, let me say that the future is yours. The future is yours, and you have to make to build your own future, and the future you want to live in. So I'm not going to patronize you. You have to be the change. And that means, you were asking me about, what resistance. I mean, at the beginning, everything. I mean, I was, considered a weirdo by absolutely everybody, including my own father. Everybody. And pretty much. I mean, there was some things, adventurous, that's maybe what saved it. We did, there was some nice stuff on television. And television was more powerful in those days than now, because, basically in Europe, you had 2 or 3 TV channels in each country. Now, so in those days, you would be on the news at 8 o'clock, and you would go and get a beer at 8:30 after the news, and people would, would stop you in the bar and maybe even invite you for the beer. Now, you can be on television, nobody even pays attention because there are hundreds of channels and stuff. So we were in a pretty privileged position at the time. That was maybe the only privilege that we had. It was easy. And also a paradox. Now that the environment is on everybody's lips, it's more difficult to be beyond that background noise. Everybody talks about the environment. And so how do you get beyond the background noise? Of course, in the mid-1970s, very few people were talking about it. So it was easier to be heard. And even in international conferences, I mean, there was just a handful of us Now you go to the COP and, you know, tens of thousands of lobbyists of all sorts. And so there is a mosquito syndrome, you know, the delegates, you know, you know, they don't. It's more difficult for the new generation to be heard. I'm convinced that's your, but you have new tools also, which we did not have. So, you know, play with them, and, you know, be the change maker, and, you know, pick up the incentive and ask for the incentive. As I said, you know, tax the bad guys. I was mentioning Rio 92. You know that in Rio 92, there was a thing called the polluter pays principle that was adopted in, you know, they promised that, you know, the polluters would pay. Well, are they paying? Well, you know, it's an open question.
How is your energy? You want
It's
two
good.
more questions? Because
I can
also we are having a cocktail, okay? So we can ask then Remy more questions outside and quiet. But I think there are 2 or more questions. Oh, there are many questions. I'm going to take 2 or 3, and the others going to be in private.
I'm
okay?
fine.
Okay.
I'm fine.
No, I know you have plenty of energy, but there are many people who want to ask questions. Let's start here in the second. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I'm Laura. I work for the Esade Center for Social Impact. And my question is about internal dynamics, because you started with, we had some tribal wars inside Greenpeace. So this is normal. And I would like to hear your lessons learned, because that's a really important one, because everybody always looks outside. So what can you give to us that you learned from your tribal wars?
Okay, perfect.
I think, can I answer that
Yes,
question?
directly.
Because,
It's
you
very
know,
important.
probably the next one will be very different. So, you know, there is a sentence which I have coined long time ago. And so if you use it, remember to say that's Rémi who said it. You know? It's, and apologies for those who've already heard it. Ecosystem management is a byproduct of ecosystem management. You like it? And so you have to manage, you know, I mean, you know, you have to manage human realities, and always, you know, don't lose sight of the end goal. And you have, you know, in every organization, there are frustrations, you know. I should not mention the name of somebody because I'm going to be discreet, but somebody close to me who works in a UN organization 2 days ago was telling me on the phone, I'm not going to say which UN organization, you know, her frustrations about something that had happened internally in her division, and you know, she wanted to drop it, and you know, it's somebody doing some very good humanitarian work, and I said, listen, you know, take a big breath, because these things happen in every organization, and that's the reality. And if you don't take a big breath and try to drop it all the first time you have an internal conflict or a frustration, you're not going to achieve much. That's the way it is.
Perfect. I recommend, there is a very wonderful film called How to Change the World, and it's the beginnings of Greenpeace. You are in the film, and explains that these tribal problems. It's really shocking, a shocking documentary, and all the problems that.
But you can't recognize me on the film because I have this
hair,
this beard,
I have to say,
and I smoke.
Whatever.
smoke.
You smoke whatever. Okay. Let's go there in the back to see the last one, because they are telling me that we have to finish.
Hello, Remy. Thank you for your talk. My name is Martin. I'm also a founder. My question is completely different from the others. So I'm actually very curious about something you said during your talk. So recently I also became more aware about the importance of the protected spaces that you were mentioning, protected ocean spaces. And I like what you said about that it should be the reverse. Everything should be protected and then only some areas should be able to be explored. And so in that way, I have two questions for you. First of all, I would like to understand what type of assets and what type of needs do we need to protect those certain areas? And in your vision, if we were able to achieve what you said, what would be necessary to achieve such a thing?
So assets, you know, you've used the word assets. Yeah. Yeah, I think we have to make sure that people, local people in particular, benefit from the protection. You can't hear me? That's what you're saying? Or yeah? People make sure, we have to always make sure that the benefits go back to local communities and that it goes back in an intelligent manner, because sometimes it can backlash. So for example, you protect an area that creates opportunities for tourism, but you have to make sure that this tourism is not culturally and environmentally negative. That, I think that's an example which is very relevant to marine protected areas for sure.
Merci, Remy. Thank you very much again to all the people at home and everyone here. Let me make a short ad. We are going to have, taking advantage that you mentioned Laudato Si, we are going to have a documentary film made by the Pope called The Letter. It just came last week here, the 9th of November. I think it's going to be here, and we're going to talk about this encyclica that I think is the best thing I have seen written, defending the ecosystem in the last 10 years. Thank you, special thanks to all the Esade Center for Social Impact people, and also the people from eWorks, and our partners at the Circular B30 project. So thank you very much, and now we have the opportunity.
Can I ask a question? Because they've all asked a question, and
they are going to answer you in the cocktail. Okay,
yes, but the question is, was this interesting? Was this useful? Was this inspiring? Because I never, you know, this old man talking, I'm never sure whether I hit the right chord or not. So does it work? Okay.